Bisi's body shook as money fell from her mouth, and it didn't feel right. The bills dropped one by one, but there was no happiness, just fear. She tried to scream, but more money came out instead. Her stomach twisted in pain. She grabbed her stomach, hoping the pain would stop, but it didn't. The money kept coming. This wasn't the life she dreamed of. It was nothing like she imagined. How did it come to this? Hey lovelies, if it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends and family, and let us know where you're watching from. Bisi stood in front of the cracked mirror, running her fingers through her hair. Her reflection was everything she had ever wanted to be: beautiful, graceful, and admired by everyone around her. But something gnawed at her from the inside, a feeling of emptiness that refused to go away. She knew she was special, but what good was beauty if it couldn't change her life? Her family lived in a small, run-down house at the edge of the village. Her father, a poor farmer, struggled to feed the family, and her mother did all she could to keep their house in one piece. Bisi never appreciated their sacrifices. Every time she walked through the village, she saw the other girls in their nice clothes, their fathers with money in their pockets, and she wanted more. She wanted to be like them. She didn't want to struggle like her parents did. Her mind wandered as she thought of the life she dreamed about: luxury, freedom, a life where she could get whatever she wanted without worrying about money or working hard for it. Her dream was simple: to marry a rich man, someone with power and influence. She'd be an odogwu's wife, living in a mansion, wearing expensive clothes, driving fancy cars. She could already picture it in her mind, like a movie playing over and over again. But there was Paul, her boyfriend. Paul wasn't rich. He was kind-hearted, loved her deeply, and worked every day to support them. He wasn't a man of many words, but the way he looked at her, the way he cared for her, he made her feel special. But that wasn't enough for Bisi. He didn't have the wealth she dreamed of. He couldn't give her the life she wanted. Bisi tried to ignore it. She tried to be content with Paul, tried to convince herself that love was enough. But every time she watched the other girls with their fancy clothes and expensive gifts, her heart sank. She deserved better. She deserved more. One evening, Paul came to visit her, his face lit up with excitement. He'd saved enough money to take her out for a nice dinner, something special. But Bisi barely looked up from her phone. She wasn't interested in a simple dinner. She wanted the kind of life that made heads turn. "Bisi, I saved for this for weeks," Paul said, his voice full of hope. "I want to show you how much you mean to me." Bisi sighed, dropping her phone on the table. She knew Paul meant well, but his love wasn't enough. Not when she dreamed of gold, not when she wanted more than what this village could offer. "You don't get it, Paul," she said softly, but there was no warmth in her voice. "I need more. I want to live the life I've always dreamed of. And I can't do that here." Paul's face fell. "What are you saying, Bisi? We have each other." "That's not enough," she replied coldly, her mind already drifting to thoughts of a better future. She could already picture the life she was meant to have, the one that had no place for Paul, no place for this small village. "I want more, Paul. I want everything." With that, Bisi turned away, her heart sinking, but not enough to make her regret her decision. Paul stood there for a moment, looking as though the world had crumbled around him. He didn't understand why she couldn't see that love was everything. But Bisi couldn't wait for things to change. She knew what she wanted, and Paul couldn't give her that. That night, Bisi sat in her room, looking out the window at the stars. She wasn't sure how she was going to do it, but she knew she would leave this life behind. She would find her way to the life of wealth and luxury she had always dreamed of. She would no longer be a poor girl in a small village. She would be the woman everyone envied, and nothing, not even Paul's love, would stand in her way. Days passed, and Bisi's thoughts remained the same. She kept imagining her future: money, luxury, a life far from the village. Every time she looked at her family, she felt suffocated. Her parents were good people, but they didn't have the means to give her the life she wanted. Every day was the same: wake up, work, struggle. And it made Bisi angry. Why did she have to be? Paul, sweet Paul, still came around. He kept trying to make her happy, taking her to little places around the village, buying her flowers, cooking her dinner. He worked hard to show her he cared. But it wasn't enough. It never was. One afternoon, as they sat by the river near the village, Paul gave her a small gift wrapped in brown paper. He smiled as he handed it to her. "Open it," he said, excitement in his voice. Bisi didn't feel the rush she once did when Paul did something nice for her. She opened the gift with a half-hearted smile. Inside was a simple necklace. A pretty one, but nothing special, nothing expensive. "Thank you, Paul," she said, her voice flat. "It's nice." But inside, she was thinking about the life she wanted. A life where expensive gifts were a daily occurrence, not something given after months of hard work and sacrifice. She put the necklace on, but it didn't feel like a prize. It felt like a reminder of everything she didn't have. It wasn't gold. It wasn't shiny enough. It wasn't the life she deserved. And that thought twisted inside her. "Don't you think we should move to the city?" she asked him suddenly, her voice sharp. Paul blinked. "The city? But, Bisi, we have everything we need here. And I have a job here." "No," she snapped. "You don't understand. We're stuck in this village. Nothing changes here. Don't you want more?" Paul looked at her, his face full of confusion. "What more do you need, Bisi? We have each other. Isn't that enough?" Bisi's frustration boiled over. She threw her hands up in the air, the tension between them growing thicker with every word. "No, Paul. It's not enough," she shouted. "I want a life where I don't have to worry about food, where I can wear beautiful things, where I don't have to struggle every day. I want to live like the rich girls in the city." Paul stared at her, his face going pale. "But, I thought you loved me." "I do," she said, but her words felt hollow, even to herself. "But love won't pay the bills, Paul. Love won't make me rich. Love won't make me happy." She turned and walked away, leaving Paul staring after her, his heart breaking. She didn't see it then, but as she walked away from him, she was also walking away from everything that truly mattered. All she could think about was the life of luxury she wanted. Later that evening, Bisi sat alone in her room, scrolling through Instagram. The rich girls she followed posted pictures of their trips to exotic locations, their new clothes, their sparkling jewelry. They seemed so happy, so carefree. Every post made her feel more and more desperate. That's when she saw it. A post from one of her friends, someone she hadn't seen in a while, about a party happening at a luxurious mansion in the city. The caption read, "Come live the life you deserve." Bisi's heart raced. This was it. This was her chance. She had to go. She had to be part of that world. She quickly texted her friend, asking for an invitation. When the reply came through, Bisi's pulse quickened. "You're in." The decision was made. She didn't need to think about it. She was going. The city was waiting. And this time, she wouldn't let anything hold her back. As she packed her bag later that night, Bisi's mind swirled with excitement. She was finally going to be where she belonged, surrounded by wealth, beauty, and everything she had ever dreamed of. The night was alive with music and laughter when Bisi arrived at the mansion. It was bigger than anything she had ever seen, and the lights lit up the entire street. The bass of the music vibrated through her body as she approached the door. It was as though the world outside the mansion didn't exist. She could hear the chatter and laughter of people already inside, and the sound made her heart race. As she stepped into the house, she was immediately struck by how different everything was. The walls were covered with expensive-looking art, and the floors gleamed under the soft lighting. Everyone in the room was dressed in clothes that looked expensive and well-tailored. Some were sipping cocktails, while others lounged on plush sofas, laughing loudly as though they had no care in the world. It was a world far removed from her small village. She started mingling with some of the girls in the crowd. They looked at her with curiosity, smiling as they welcomed her. But Bisi couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place. She wasn't used to this life of luxury, money, and people who didn't have to worry about where their next meal came from. She hadn't even been here an hour, and she already wanted more. That's when she noticed him. Pablo wasn't like the other men in the room. He stood out. He wasn't dressed in a sharp suit, like some of the other wealthy-looking guests. Instead, he wore a flashy gold chain, a tight t-shirt, designer jeans, and a pair of expensive sneakers. His look screamed confidence, the kind of confidence that only comes from knowing you've got money, even if you don't show it in the usual ways. He had his head tilted slightly, his eyes scanning the room with an almost predatory gaze. When his eyes landed on Bisi, it was as if the whole room disappeared. For a second, Bisi couldn't breathe. His presence was magnetic, like a pull she couldn't resist. Pablo made his way towards her, his smile wide, showing perfectly white teeth. His confidence was palpable, and Bisi couldn't help but be drawn to him. "Well, look who we have here," he said, his voice smooth and low. "I don't think I've seen you around before. What's your name?" Bisi felt her heart race. I'm Bisi, she said, trying to sound casual, but she knew she was failing. There was something about Pablo that made her nervous in a way that both excited and scared her. I'm Pablo Money, he said, leaning in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm glad we finally met. You look like someone who's ready to experience more than this place can give you. Bisi's eyes widened. What do you mean? He gave a quick glance around the room, then looked back at her, his smile never fading. I can show you the life you've always dreamed of. The life that's waiting for you, Bisi. You don't belong here, not with these people. You deserve better. I can give that to you. Bisi felt a rush of heat in her chest. This was it. This was exactly what she wanted. Everything she had ever dreamed about. The luxury. The attention. The feeling of being desired and wanted. She didn't care that he was different from the men she had seen in the village. He had something she craved, and she would take it. You can have it all, Bisi, Pablo continued, his eyes glinting with something dangerous. I'll take you anywhere you want. You just have to say yes. His words were like a promise, and for the first time, Bisi felt like she was on the brink of something bigger than herself, bigger than anything she had ever known. Pablo wasn't like the other guys. He didn't follow the rules. And she was ready to follow him, no matter where it led. I'm ready, Bisi whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. Pablo's smile widened, and he stepped even closer to her. I knew you would be. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Pablo showed Bisi a life she had only seen in movies. Every day was a new adventure. He took her to fancy restaurants where the food tasted like nothing she'd ever had before. It was rich, delicious, and everything was always served in gold-plated dishes. They traveled to places she couldn't even pronounce, staying in hotels with views that looked out over entire cities. And everywhere they went, Pablo made her feel like she was the most important person in the room. Bisi loved the attention. She loved the way people looked at her, the way they admired her for being with Pablo. He gave her everything she wanted, from the latest phone to designer clothes. Every time she wore something new, she felt like she was finally living the life she deserved. The life she had always dreamed of. But there was something about Pablo that made Bisi uneasy. It wasn't his wealth, it was how easily he spent it. He bought her things without hesitation, without any thought. He seemed to live in a world where money was endless. And while Bisi loved luxury, something inside her told her that this life came with a price. She didn't know what the price was yet, but she was willing to ignore that feeling as long as the good times kept coming. One night, after another expensive dinner, Pablo took her to a club. The lights were dim, the music was loud, and everyone was dancing and laughing, lost in the night. Bisi felt like she belonged. She felt like this was where she was supposed to be. The beat of the music pulsed through her body, and for a moment, she forgot about everything else. As the days passed, Pablo continued to spoil her. He gave her everything she could ever ask for. Yet, every now and then, she saw strange things that she couldn't quite explain. Pablo's phone was always locked, and when she accidentally stumbled across a message on his phone, it was about something called the renewal. He never told her what that meant, but the way he looked at her when she asked made her feel uneasy. Despite all of this, Bisi ignored the warning signs. She was too in love with the life she had, too addicted to the luxury and freedom it brought. She believed this was what she had always wanted. Pablo had given her a taste of the high life, and she was addicted. But there was one thing that kept nagging at her, favor. Bisi hadn't spoken to her in weeks, not since the day she'd warned her about Pablo. Favor had begged her to be careful, to not get lost in the world Pablo was showing her. Bisi, please listen to me, Favor had said over the phone, her voice full of concern. Pablo is not what he seems. I'm telling you, there are dark things going on with him. People have said he's involved in things that could hurt you. You need to leave him before it's too late. But Bisi didn't want to hear it. She wasn't the same girl anymore. She was living her dream, and no one was going to take that away from her, not even Favor. I don't know what you're talking about, Bisi snapped back, brushing off her friend's warnings. Pablo is perfect for me. He's rich, powerful, and he's everything I ever wanted. You're just jealous, Favor. You've never understood me. And so, Bisi shut her out, even as Favor's words echoed in her mind. That afternoon, Bisi was in her bedroom, admiring a new dress Pablo had bought her. She was excited about the party they would be attending that night, but there was still a lingering doubt that she couldn't shake. It was the same feeling she had when she first saw that strange calabash in Pablo's house. But she quickly pushed it aside. She had everything now. She didn't need to question it. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was Paul. She hesitated before answering. Bisi, it's Paul. His voice sounded distant, hurt. What do you want, Paul? Bisi asked, her words sharper than she intended. She felt a pang of guilt but quickly ignored it. She didn't have time to deal with him. I just wanted to talk. It's been a while, and I've been thinking, Paul said softly. I never wanted to lose you, Bisi. I still care about you. But I see how you've changed, and it hurts. You're different now. And I can't be part of this. Bisi felt a rush of emotions, guilt, anger, and something else she couldn't quite explain. She wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, that she had made the choice, but she didn't. You should have been enough for me, Paul, she said coldly, her heart hardening. But you're not. I need more than what you can give me. I need more than what this village can offer. I need the life I've always dreamed of. Paul fell silent on the other end. I don't know what happened to us, Bisi, he said, his voice barely a whisper. But I can't keep trying if you don't want me. Bisi took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Paul. But I've made my choice. She hung up before he could respond, feeling an unfamiliar weight in her chest. She didn't want to be sad. She didn't want to feel bad. She had moved on. But still, something gnawed at her. Later that evening, Bisi joined Pablo at the lavish party. She was surrounded by laughter, music, and the kind of people who lived the life she had always dreamed of. Pablo pulled her close, and for a moment, she forgot all about Paul and the life she had left behind. Paul's heartbreak didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the world she was living in now, the world Pablo had introduced her to. And she didn't have to worry about anything. She was finally free from the life she hated. Bisi couldn't stop smiling. Her life was everything she had ever wanted. Wealth, glamour, excitement, and Pablo, and she posted about it all on Instagram. Her new outfits, the meals at five-star restaurants, the sunsets on private beaches. Her followers grew, and with every post, Bisi felt more and more like she belonged. The comments from her friends back home flooded in, filled with admiration, jealousy, and praise. But the happiness Bisi projected on social media wasn't the reality of what was happening behind closed doors. Pablo was always there, spoiling her, taking care of her every need. But there was something about his house that started to unsettle Bisi. It wasn't the beauty or the luxury, it was the odd, strange things she noticed. Little details that didn't fit into the perfect picture. One evening, as she was walking through the hallway of Pablo's mansion, she saw it again, a calabash. It was placed carefully on a wooden table in the corner, wrapped in a red cloth. At first, Bisi thought it was just a decoration, maybe something traditional that Pablo liked. But as she looked closer, she saw the tortoise shell tied around it. The sight sent a cold shiver down her spine. Bisi quickly looked away, brushing it off. It couldn't mean anything, right? Pablo had given her everything she wanted: wealth, attention, power. He wasn't someone to be afraid of. Still, every time she passed that calabash, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her stomach. It was as if the house was hiding something dark. But every time she questioned Pablo about it, he would simply smile and dismiss her concerns. It's just a part of the decor, he would say, his eyes glinting with a strange kind of amusement. You don't need to worry about it. But Bisi's unease grew. It wasn't just the calabash. There were other things too. Small things that felt out of place. The strange powders that Pablo kept in his private drawer. The odd trips he would take to see someone he never mentioned. Bisi tried to ignore it. She told herself that the life she was living was worth any discomfort. She had what she wanted, and nothing else mattered. As the days went on, the discomfort faded into the background of her mind. She was busy living her dream life, parties, private jets, and photo shoots that made her feel like she was on top of the world. People envied her. They wanted what she had. And for the first time, Bisi felt powerful. But deep down, she couldn't forget the feeling that something wasn't right. There was a nagging thought that she couldn't push away, a warning that kept whispering in the back of her mind. Favor had been right. Pablo wasn't what he seemed. And she had ignored the warnings. But it was too late now. The life Bisi had built, the life she had always dreamed of, was too good to walk away from. Despite the odd things she noticed, despite the discomfort that sometimes crept up on her, she stayed. Because Pablo had given her everything she wanted. And in the end, that was all that mattered. One evening, after a long day of shopping, Bisi was sitting by the pool, scrolling through her phone. Pablo walked in, holding a small package in his hand. He smiled at her, but there was something unsettling about the way he looked at her. I brought something for you. You complained about not being able to sleep, he said, his voice smooth. It'll help you relax tonight. Bisi raised an eyebrow. What is it? A special powder, Pablo said with a mischievous smile. I got it from Baba Ijabu. It's good for calming your mind. You'll sleep like a queen. Bisi frowned. Baba Ijabu? She had heard the name before, but she couldn't remember where. The name sounded familiar, but it also made her uneasy. Still, the idea of feeling even more relaxed in the luxurious world she had created for herself appealed to her. Just trust me, Pablo said, his eyes locking onto hers. You won't regret it. She hesitated but then nodded. Okay. Pablo opened the small packet and poured the powder into a glass of wine. He handed it to her with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Bisi took the glass, raised it to her lips, and drank it all in one go. Almost instantly, she felt the warm sensation spread through her body. She felt a little dizzy, but it was the kind of dizziness that made her feel light. Carefree. Better? Pablo asked, watching her with an intensity that made Bisi uncomfortable, though she couldn't place why. Bisi smiled, trying to push away the growing unease. Yes. I feel great. That's good, Pablo said, sitting beside her. Because this will help you with everything. You'll have everything you need, just like you wanted. Bisi nodded, but something in his words made her pause. She looked at him, her mind clouded by the wine and the strange feeling that seemed to grow stronger with every passing minute. She didn't realize how deeply the powder had affected her until later that night, when she could barely keep her eyes open. She went to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. Her dreams were filled with shadows, with faces she didn't recognize, whispering her name in a language she couldn't understand. She woke up several times, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding. The next morning, Bisi was still groggy, but she tried to shake off the unease. She had everything she wanted, didn't she? But as she looked at Pablo, who was sitting across the room, there was something different about him today. His eyes seemed darker, his smile colder. And she couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something from her. Later that afternoon, she got a message from Favor. Her heart sank when she saw her name. Bisi, please be careful. I had a terrible dream about you. It felt like you were in danger. I know you've moved on, but I can't ignore it. Something's wrong. Please, don't let Pablo get too close. I'm worried for you. Bisi read the message over and over again. Every word felt like a warning. But how could she listen to Favor now? She had everything she had ever wanted, wealth, luxury, and Pablo's affection. What was there to be worried about? She quickly typed a response. Favor, stop. You're just jealous of me. You don't understand what it's like. I have everything now. I don't need your warnings. Pablo is perfect for me. She hit send, but a small part of her felt unsettled by her words. Why did she feel so defensive? She didn't need to explain herself to Favor, but the doubt kept lingering. That night, Pablo prepared dinner for them. It was just the two of them, alone in the mansion. He was different tonight, more intense, more controlling. He smiled at her, but there was something dark in his gaze. Hey, he said, handing her a plate of food. I made this special for you. Bisi took a bite, but this time, something was off. The food tasted strange, too bitter, too sharp. She didn't want to seem rude, so she ate it anyway, but the unease in her stomach grew stronger. You like it? Pablo asked, watching her closely. It's good, she replied, but her voice was unsure. Good, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You'll need it. That night, Bisi could barely sleep. She kept hearing strange noises, whispers in the walls, as if someone, something, was watching her. She turned to Pablo, but he was already asleep, his face cold and distant. The unease that had been creeping in for days now felt like a weight in her chest. She didn't know what to do. She had everything she ever wanted, but now it felt like it was slipping away. Bisi woke up that morning with a dull headache. Her dreams had been restless, full of dark shadows and whispers she couldn't make sense of. The unease she had been feeling for days now had settled deeper inside her. But she brushed it off. She had everything she wanted, luxury, attention, and Pablo. That was all that mattered. Later that evening, Pablo handed her a bowl of food. Here, Pablo said, gently pushing the plate toward her. This will make you feel better. You'll see, just trust me. Bisi eyed the plate, her mind still foggy from the previous night. She felt a bit sick, but the hunger inside her won out. She took a bite, trying not to let her suspicion show. The food tasted bland at first, But there was an aftertaste, something bitter, something wrong, but she forced it down. "You're going to feel amazing tonight," Pablo said, watching her carefully. "Trust me, Bisi. This is all for you." She nodded, but in the pit of her stomach, a knot was tightening. The food sat heavily inside her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night he wasn't wearing his usual clothes. He had a red cloth wrapped around his waist. It was old, tattered at the edges, and covered with strange symbols Bisi couldn't make out. Her heart began to race. "What's that?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, though she tried to keep it steady. But he didn't answer. Instead, he kissed her, and they spent the night together.